I'll never forget the night it all started. The kind of night that makes your skin crawl, the one that starts small, just a whisper in the dark, and grows into something you can't escape. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, half listening to the rain tapping against the window, when she appeared in my doorway. She didn't knock, didn't say hello. She just leaned against the frame and whispered, "This is our secret." Her voice was soft, almost fragile, but there was something in it that made my stomach twist. I should have laughed it off. I should have told her she was being dramatic. But I didn't, because the way she looked at me, the intensity in her eyes, told me this wasn't a joke. It was serious. And in that moment, I knew whatever she was about to tell me would change everything. Her name is Lily. I've known her for years. She's funny, smart, the kind of person who lights up a room. But that night, she was different. She was tense, nervous, even. And I could see her hands trembling just slightly as she held out a small, nondescript envelope. "You have to promise me you won't tell anyone," she said, glancing around like she thought someone might be listening. Not a word. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. I nodded, even though a tiny, nagging voice in my head screamed that I should walk away. I slid the envelope across the coffee table, trying not to look too curious, though I was dying to know what was inside. I wanted to ask her, "What is this?" But somehow I couldn't. Then she leaned closer, so close I could feel her breath on my cheek, and whispered the words that would haunt me for weeks. "You have to see this for yourself. But someone is watching. Someone might be recording everything." Recording everything? My heart jumped. My eyes widened. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. What could possibly be so dangerous that someone would need to watch us, record us? The rain outside suddenly sounded louder, heavier, as if it was echoing the tension in the room. I wanted to laugh it off, tell myself it was just paranoia, but the look in her eyes told me it wasn't. I reached for the envelope, hesitated, and in that tiny pause, she smiled. Just the slightest smile, but it was eerie, like she knew something I didn't, something I wasn't ready for. And just like that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of my apartment, leaving me alone with the envelope, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, and the whisper of her words still lingering. "This is our secret, but someone is recording everything." I stared at the envelope, my hands shaking, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to leave it there, forget the whole thing, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But another part of me, the part that's always curious, always looking for the truth, knew I had to open it. And the moment I did, everything changed. I still remember the first time I met Lily. It was in college, in that awkward, chaotic first week of classes. She was sitting on the edge of a library table, headphones in, sketchbook open, completely absorbed in her own world. There was something magnetic about her, like she could see right through you, but without judging. I was instantly drawn to her. Over time, we became inseparable. Friends who knew too much about each other, who shared secrets, late-night talks, and stupid little adventures that made life feel bigger than it was. But as close as we were, there was always a side of Lily I didn't fully understand. She had layers, some bright, some shadowed. She laughed loud and easy, but sometimes her eyes would darken for no reason I could figure out. She'd disappear for hours, sometimes days, without explanation, and when she returned, she was quieter, more careful. I always assumed it was personal stuff, something from her past. I never pushed. I didn't think I needed to know. That night, though, when she whispered about someone recording us, I realized I didn't really know her at all. I had no idea what she was hiding, or why it mattered so much. The envelope on the coffee table didn't just feel like a piece of paper. It felt like a threshold into another world, one I wasn't sure I wanted to step into. She had always been protective of her privacy, almost obsessive about it. I remember her deleting messages in front of me, refusing to leave her phone unattended, making sure no one followed her home. At the time, I thought it was quirky, maybe even paranoid. But looking back, those little behaviors were pieces of a puzzle I had ignored. A puzzle that, suddenly, I was trapped in the middle of. I sat there that night, staring at the envelope, trying to remember all the times she had hinted at something strange, things she said in passing that didn't make sense until now. There was the time she warned me not to trust a certain friend who seemed harmless, or when she casually mentioned that some people will watch without ever being seen. I'd laughed it off then. Now, the laughter felt hollow. I finally picked up the envelope and ran my fingers over its smooth surface. Inside, There were photographs, blurry, dark images of places I recognized, my apartment, the street outside, even the cafe we frequented. And there were recordings, short clips, distorted voices, and conversations that sounded eerily familiar. My own voice was in them, talking to her. Every word I'd spoken to Lily that week had been recorded. Every laugh, every complaint, every secret. A chill ran down my spine. Who would do this? And why? The questions stacked up, pressing on me like the weight of a storm. Lily had been living with this fear for who knows how long, and somehow, I'd been dragged into it. It wasn't just her secret anymore. It was mine too, whether I wanted it or not. And then I heard it, the faintest sound, like a whisper through the walls. Not her voice. Something else. Something watching. I froze, heart pounding. I wasn't alone. The next morning, I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying the images and recordings from the envelope. Every familiar place felt different, tainted, like someone had been inside my life without my permission. I kept imagining eyes in the shadows, cameras hidden in corners, and for the first time, I felt the fear Lily had been carrying all along. I called her, hands shaking, but she didn't pick up. Texts went unanswered. When she finally responded, it was short, urgent. Don't go anywhere. Meet me tonight. Alone. And don't bring anyone. I didn't question it. I didn't even think. I just knew I had to see her. But as the hours crawled by, every sound in my apartment, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, felt amplified. Every shadow seemed like it could be someone hiding, watching. And I couldn't shake the thought that maybe the recordings weren't just about us. Maybe this went deeper than we could imagine. That night, I met her in the alley behind the cafe where we first met. She was leaning against the brick wall, hood up, hands stuffed into her pockets. She looked smaller somehow, fragile, but her eyes were fierce. "You've seen them," she said, not as a question, but as a statement. I did, I admitted, holding up the envelope like proof of the nightmare we were stepping into. She flinched, but didn't take it from me. Instead, she pulled me close and whispered, "They've been listening for months. Everything we say, every move we make, it's all been recorded. And now, they know we know." I froze. My stomach twisted. Who? Who would do this to us? She shook her head, her breath visible in the cold night air. "I don't know. I can't. I don't even know if it's one person or a group. But whoever it is, they're dangerous. And they're patient. Patient enough to wait until the right moment to strike." We stood there in silence, rain beginning to fall, the alley empty except for us. And yet, it didn't feel empty. I could swear I heard a soft shuffle behind a dumpster. Just a fleeting sound, but enough to make my heart hammer against my ribs. Lily grabbed my hand. "We have to be careful," she whispered. "Every move we make could be recorded, watched, judged, and if they find out we're paying attention, things could get messy." I nodded, but the lump in my throat wouldn't go away. As we turned to leave, a flash of movement caught my eye across the street, a shadow vanishing into the darkness, faster than it should have been possible. And in that instant, I realized we weren't just being watched. We were being hunted. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. Every knock at the door, every passing car felt like a potential threat. I stopped leaving the apartment except when absolutely necessary. Grocery runs became calculated missions, looking over my shoulder, scanning every shadow. And all the while, Lily was right there, constantly texting, constantly warning me. Yet she didn't reveal everything, just enough to keep the fear simmering. We met in secret, always in different locations, abandoned parking garages, quiet corners of city parks, even once in the back room of a 24-hour diner. Each time, she brought more evidence. Blurred photos of someone outside my building, strange receipts, anonymous notes slipped under doors. The more I saw, the more I realized how much of my life had been infiltrated without my knowledge. The idea that someone had been recording us for months wasn't just creepy, it was terrifying. And yet, despite the fear, there was a strange thrill, a morbid curiosity. I couldn't stop looking through the evidence, piecing it together, trying to make sense of what we were up against. It felt like a puzzle, but with stakes that weren't just frustrating, they were dangerous, maybe even deadly. One night, we decided to confront the surveillance directly. Lily had found a device hidden in the cafe we often visited. It was small, inconspicuous, but unmistakable. A camera. aimed directly at the table where we always sat. I felt my stomach knot as we examined it. Someone had been there, watching us, probably for hours, maybe days, and we hadn't even noticed. The realization made my skin crawl. "We have to find out who's behind this," I said, voice trembling. "We can't just let them keep doing it." She nodded, eyes sharp, determined. "I know, but we have to be smart. They're patient, and they won't show themselves until they're ready. And when they do, it won't be pretty." That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the building sounded like footsteps approaching. Every flash of light outside my window felt like a camera shutter. I kept thinking about Lily's words. If they find out we're paying attention, things could get messy, and I realized we were running out of time. We had no idea how long they'd been observing us. No idea how much they knew. Then it happened. I was checking the mailbox when I noticed a small envelope, almost invisible, tucked behind the metal flap. My name was scrawled across it, in handwriting I didn't recognize. I hesitated, heart hammering, then tore it open. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. Me, asleep in my own apartment, unaware, completely exposed. And on the back, in jagged letters, a single message: "We know everything. You can't hide anymore." The rain began to fall harder, the city lights blurring through the downpour. I could feel the walls closing in, the shadows creeping closer. And I knew, in that instant, that nothing would ever be the same again. I barely had time to process the Polaroid before my phone buzzed again. A video had arrived, from an unknown number. Hands shaking, I opened it. And then I saw her, Lily, smiling at the camera, but something was wrong. Her eyes, they weren't the same. There was a coldness there I'd never seen before. She spoke, but not to me. She spoke to someone else, someone off-screen. "He suspects too much. Are you sure he's safe to keep around?" My stomach dropped. My heart raced. This wasn't just about someone watching us anymore. Lily, my closest friend, the person who had whispered, "This is our secret," was part of it. She'd been working with them all along. I felt my world tilt. Every memory, every late-night conversation, every warning she'd given me, it was all a setup. And now, I had no idea who to trust, who was real, or what the true plan was. The rain pounded against my window as I stared at the screen, frozen. And in that instant, I understood the terrifying truth. I wasn't just being watched. I was being manipulated. And the game wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The city felt heavier that night, as if every street, every alley, every shadow was part of the trap. I couldn't stay in my apartment, not after seeing the video. I had to confront Lily and the people behind this, before it was too late. My hands shook, my pulse raced, but I forced myself to follow the lead she'd left in the last message. An abandoned warehouse at the edge of town. Inside, the air was thick, damp, and smelling faintly of rust. Shadows stretched across the walls, distorted by the flickering lights above. And there she was, Lily, standing at the center of the room, perfectly calm, perfectly composed, as if she'd been expecting me. Around her, a group of figures in dark clothing moved silently, almost like ghosts. "I knew you'd come," she said, her voice almost gentle. But her eyes held that same coldness from the video. "You always were too curious for your own good." I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. "Why? Why are you doing this?" She smiled, stepping closer. "Because some things, some people, need to learn the hard way. And you've been so easy to watch, so predictable. You were perfect for this little experiment." The realization hit me like a punch. I hadn't been the target. I'd been the test. Every recording, every photograph, every warning had been carefully orchestrated to see how I would react. Panic, fear, paranoia, they were all data points, and I had been their lab rat. But then, instinct took over. I lunged, grabbing a metal pipe from the corner, swinging at the nearest figure. Chaos erupted. Shadows collided, shouts echoed, and the warehouse became a storm of movement and noise. In the confusion, I reached Lily, grabbing her arm, demanding answers. Her expression flickered, not cold, but human, vulnerable. And for a fraction of a second, I saw the girl I once knew. Before I could process it, one of the figures behind her pressed something against my back. A camera, or maybe a gun, I couldn't tell. And then Lily whispered, almost too softly to hear, "I didn't have a choice. They're watching me too. If I help you now, we're both finished." In that instant, The lines between friend and enemy blurred completely. And just as I realized we were both trapped in a game far bigger than either of us, the lights went out. Silence fell. And in the darkness, I heard a voice that made my blood run cold. Not Lily's. A voice that had been there all along, unseen, watching, waiting. Game's not over. When the lights flickered back on, the warehouse was empty. Everyone, Lily, the shadowy figures, even the mysterious voice, was gone. I sank to the cold concrete floor, chest heaving, my hands trembling. For a long time, all I could do was breathe and try to make sense of what had just happened. I felt exhausted, terrified, and oddly relieved. Somehow, I was still standing. Somehow, I was free. I didn't see Lily again that night, or the next day, or the week after. I tried calling, texting, searching for any trace of her, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. And yet, I couldn't feel anger toward her, not really. Somewhere in the chaos, I understood that she hadn't acted out of malice. She had been trapped too, forced to play a role she hated, caught between survival and loyalty. That made her betrayal feel less like cruelty and more like tragedy. In the following weeks, I changed my habits. I stopped taking privacy for granted, learned to read the signs of manipulation, and became more cautious about who I trusted. I strengthened my circle of real friends, people who had no hidden agendas, no secret cameras, no invisible strings. And slowly, the panic that had once consumed me gave way to clarity. Yet, even as life began to feel normal again, I couldn't shake the memory of her words. Game's not over. It haunted me, not because I felt threatened, but because it reminded me how fragile trust can be, and how easily a single secret can unravel a life. I had survived the fear, but the experience left a permanent mark. A lesson carved into my mind. Nothing is ever truly private. Nothing is ever guaranteed, and the people you think you know best may be hiding layers you can't even imagine. Months later, I returned to the alley behind the cafe where Lily and I had first spoken that night. It was quiet, empty, unremarkable, yet it held all the echoes of the terror and connection we'd shared. I whispered to myself, more as a promise than anything else, we're still here. I survived, and I'll never forget. I never learned who had been watching us, or why. I never got closure about the experiment, the recordings, or the shadowy figures who had orchestrated it all. But in a strange way, that was okay. The truth, I realized, wasn't in uncovering every secret. It was in surviving, in moving forward, and in carrying the experience as a reminder of human resilience. And sometimes, late at night, when the rain hits my window, I swear I can hear the faintest whisper in the shadows. Not threatening, not cruel, just a reminder that secrets, once whispered, can never truly be silent. Life goes on. The fear fades, but the memory remains. And for me, that's enough.